So I've had a revelation about the way in which I play video games. It turns out I am a completionist. Yes, in fact, as I walk down the street, people yell out to me, "Hey Clayton, aren't you that new completionist that we've been hearing so much about?" Yes, I'm the new completionist. Jokes aside about the name, if you don't get the joke, then you don't need to go down the rabbit hole of this. But yes, I am a completionist with my video games. And I wanted to talk about it today because I've been finding it very comforting to have this revelation. I want to get into some of the science of this and just have a conversation about our approach to playing your backlog of video games, whether it's like retro games, new games. I really want to hear from you before we get into the details. How do you approach games? Are you one of those people that, dives into a game, plays a little bit of it, then starts another one, maybe has 5 or 6 games going at one time where you're maybe 15% into each of them, and then maybe some of them you just never finish? Is that your approach, or are you like me, where you kind of singularly focus on one game and you're going to just block out all of the other distractions and you're going to make your way through this one experience? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. So yes, I've had this revelation over the past few weeks as I've been making my way through some games where by any normal account I should have stopped playing it at a certain point, but then I just kept going. For instance, like Dredge. Here's a perfect example of a game, right? This was a really, really great game. And I just kept going. There were so many little side quests and I just really enjoyed the experience. The main story was basically done, but I kept wanting to go and make my ship even stronger and find out the treasure, where it was hidden, and I just kept going and going and going. The same with like Tears of the Kingdom. I found I'm not finishing this game. I know how to go and fight Ganondorf. I know that's going to happen at some point. But no, in Tears of the Kingdom, I wanted to complete every shrine. So I did. I completed every shrine in Tears of the Kingdom. I completed every light route in Tears of the Kingdom. I did almost every side quest, not all of them. And I just found myself in savoring. I guess that's really the word I kind of wanted to talk about today, is that the reason I've been finding it so comforting is because I've been able to savor these games. If you buy a game for $50, $60, can I enjoy it and just block out all of the other distractions of people talking about other games that are out there and available right now? And yes, everyone's talking about this game or everyone's talking about that game. I don't care. I really don't care. And so for me, I'm able to put on blinders and just kind of stay singularly focused. Now, I'll get into why I find this comforting and some of the science behind it in a second, but this reminds me of playing games as a child. And going back to my childhood, I would sit and stay totally focused on Metroid, to the point where I would even dream about it. I would even go to school, and when I had a little bit of a break, I had my official Nintendo player guide in my backpack, and I would get graph paper out, and I would try to map out where I was going in Metroid to see if I could solve things while I wasn't playing the game, when I had some free time. And then when I would get home, and I was able to play my game, and my parents let me, okay, you can have some game time. And I would sit down and work through that map to try to solve it. And I think that's really important. And I think for our kids these days, it's even more important with all of the distractions with like YouTube Shorts and TikTok and very minimal attention span these days. We're really, really, I think, screwing up our brains with not being able to focus on single tasks and seeing them all the way through. So in my childhood, I could sit for hours and read a book, read comic books in my room and read it cover to cover. And I love the idea of completing series, in order. Okay, I'm going to start with 1. I'm going to go all the way through it this way. I'm not going to just start with number 5. I have to start with 1. And the same way with sitting there and playing video games all the way through, reading novels in a series, whether it was C.S. Lewis books or Lord of the Rings or any of those, starting with the first one, making my way through it, starting with The Hobbit, going through the Lord of the Rings, all of that, right? And then I had a huge gap in my gaming. I talked about this before. I'm going to do a whole deep dive video on this gap period in my life where I didn't play video games for like 10 to 15 years. And I want to analyze kind of why that was the case, because I think it's going to be fascinating. But then I came back to playing games again after so many years, and I fell right back into this pattern of just wanting to see games completely through and enjoying that experience. And so far this year, that's been the case on every game I've played. Whether it was Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown, all of these little side quests and the jugs that you could collect, the different treasure, all of these little energy things throughout the whole game, I just went nuts to try to collect all of them. Now, that is to say, let me just make a little caveat here. When I say completionist, I don't mean getting every Korok seed and doing every tiny little thing and like 100% completing the game in that way. No. But the way that I've been approaching games that I've been really enjoying is doing, first of all, the complete story, any of the DLC that's been available, but tons of the side quests, unlocking all of the major things that make the game to feel full. So, in Tears of the Kingdom, all of the Dragon Tears storyline, all of the, the shrines, all of the light roots, all of those things I felt compelled to do. Most all of the side quests, save like 5 or 6 of them that I don't think I did, that weren't that interesting to me. But that's my approach to a game. That's when I say completionist. I know maybe we can get into an argument about, oh no, you gotta get every Korok seed to be fully, completionist. Great, that's one way to approach it. That's not how I approach it. But I want to see the whole story through with all of those little bells and whistles, and I feel really fulfilled when I complete a game, like a sense of accomplishment that I saw the storyline, I've solved these puzzles, I've done all of the things to navigate my way through this map and maze, and it's really, forced my brain to think outside the box on how to problem solve. Been really, really good. But let me just talk a little bit about the science in this and why this I find so compelling, actually, because it turns out that when you have an unfinished task in your brain, that is, let's say you start 5 different video games and none of them are completed, or you start 5 projects in your life and none of them are completed, and your desk is a mess and your house is a mess and none of it is ever actually finished, you don't ever check anything off of your to-do list, that actually eats up so much more brain space energy than does actually completing the task. There's actually a scientific term for it based on a Lithuanian psychologist who uncovered this, that I think it's called the Zirgnok effect, where your brain can't move on, it stays, it consumes so much energy focused on unfinished tasks. You ever notice when you're studying something, you take the test and it's done, you've now completed the test, your brain like kind of switches off. You're not really focused on that test anymore and all the studying because you're completed with it. That's called this Zirgnok effect. And when your unfinished tasks, your unfinished video games, your unfinished novels, your unfinished projects are just kind of lurking in your brain, it eats up so much additional brain space and energy. 20% of our overall body energy goes through our brain. Our brains burn 20% of our energy on a daily basis. Imagine then using up that energy for things that you're not even completing, and it's sucking up all of that additional space. Also, I think this is important too, multitasking. We now know that multitasking does not work, right? And so I've really tried to stop the multitasking, because it turns out that when you multitask or try to multitask and you're switching between things, you're burning up to 40% more brain space and energy by trying to switch between these tasks. And the worst part is that when you switch, let's say you're in an email, you're typing an email and you're trying to be really thoughtful in your response to the email, and then you get a text message from somebody, it takes up to 30 minutes for your brain to kind of switch back fully and focus back on that email again. You're never really fully back into it for like another 30 minutes. It's astonishing to me. So guys, maybe that's a long way of saying that yes, I'm a completionist, and I've had this sort of come to Jesus moment about how I approach playing games. And I have to say, it's been pretty comforting to know that it's almost like maybe going to a meeting, like a self-help meeting, like, hi, I'm Clayton. Welcome, Clayton. Welcome to our first meeting. Yes, and I am a completionist. And just sort of admitting that is kind of freeing, because it's like, okay, great. Now when I buy a game, I know that I'm going to be singularly focused on that one experience, and it's okay. I don't have to be distracted by all of these other games that come out. And frankly, it helps me stop FOMO also. When everyone's talking about, Rise of Ronin and all of these other, Dragon's Dogma 2 and all of this stuff, I can say, great, maybe I'll get to that 2 years from now. And that's okay. I can get to it on my own terms. Let me know in the comments below, how do you approach games? Are you a completionist? Are you kind of a bare minimalist? Let me know, and thank you guys so much for subscribing, and I just wanted to come in today and have this conversation, so thank you for allowing me to vent a little bit about admitting that yes, I have this condition called completionism. We'll see you next time, everyone.